Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Top of the Box Talks About Board Games, where Ross and I are going to be chatting about some board games.
Love it.
As mentioned, that's Ross. I'm Luke. We're in a hurry today, so we're just going through things quicker than usual.
Well, we say that, but we say this every time, and then we're going to get off on a tangent like I'm already doing about some random topic, or we're going to talk about some things. So, there is spoilers, a game I'm quite passionate about, which is maybe quite hard to keep me contained.
Which may come up a little bit later, but it's our top 5 games that are of 2019 release. So these are games that released in 2019. Last time we did 2018 games, and as we found out from our challenge video, which came up recently, Ross and I are both going to play the top games of our list. So we're trying to establish what they are early, so we don't have to worry about it. We get to the end of the year and we're like, what were we doing again? I think the only thing we won't do is we won't restrict ourselves to the anticipated 2024 release.
Yes.
Because those might not necessarily come out.
We need to hustle on that as well, because even getting to that far in the video, because there's no point doing that video in March.
No. So we kind of need to get on with it, because that's life. But also, a lot of games that come out in 2024 aren't talked about until they aren't mentioned until later in the year. So anyway, whatever. That's that's future Luke and Ross problem. Let's talk about 2019 games.
Having said we won't go off on a tangent, we instantly did.
Yep. Comment down below who goes off on the most tangents. Just let's do that. Tangent tracker. Yeah. Right, 2019 games. Honourable mentions. I have 4 very quick ones.
I have 4 very quick ones too.
Okay, my 4 are Sushi Roll, the dice version of Sushi Go, which is a great little flick one. Flick of Faith, which is a little dexterity game, area-controlled dexterity game.
Online.
You've never played it, which I've discovered recently. It's great. King's Dilemma, purely because we've only played one scenario of it. I enjoyed it. You were a bit about it, but that's possibly because you just misunderstood things. And Taverns of Tiefenthal, which is just a really good game.
Taverns is on my honourable mentions.
Nice. So. That's handy.
Do you want to know my honourable mentions?
Yeah, give us your other 3.
Barge.
Barge?
Barrage, sorry.
Barrage. Oh, Barrage.
Barrage, sorry. Going crazy. Barrage, sorry. Going crazy.
Ross is going so fast, he's skipping letters.
Yeah. Barrage. Blitzkrieg, which I know you don't like,
yeah,
but I do quite enjoy. And Parks was the other one as well.
Yeah, Parks is a nice little game.
And I had Taverns, which, you already covered off. So
Yeah. I am going to let you go first on this one, because I'll go first on the odd number ones, because you want to be able to have as much time as possible to talk about your number 1. I'm fairly certain.
Yep.
So, let's go into number 5. My number 5 is, this is kind of a placeholder for the entire system, but my game choice is Unmatched Battle of Legends Volume 1.
Nice.
Because I love the Unmatched system. It's a 2... It's predominantly 2, let's be honest. You can play 3 and 4 if you want to, but it's a 2-player card skirmish game where all sorts of characters are just fighting against each other. You're playing down cards, attacking. Whoever wins. And it's in the same realm as like Villainous, where you've got all sorts of different things you can just pull in together, watch them go, see what happens. You get all sorts of things. You can get like Robin Hood versus Bigfoot, or Marvel heroes are now in there, so Daredevil versus Yenega. There's all sorts of different combinations you can do. My personal favourite...
Red Riding Hood, loads of them.
The Red Riding Hood, absolutely. My personal favourite set is the Cobble and Fog set, which is kind of a gothic history, which has Dracula, Sherlock Holmes, The Invisible Man, and someone else that I will put in post, because I will remember them. It's a really good game. It's a really good, quick game, I think.
I was looking for something along those, obviously a little while ago, looking for that kind of niche in my collection, which I didn't have, and I opted for Dice Throne initially, thinking I would quite enjoy that. But I don't really love Dice Throne, and I do prefer Unmatched to Dice Throne. I think it's just got a little bit more strategy to it, I find.
Yeah, absolutely.
The modularity? The modular approach. Whatever, I'll figure it out. Is really good, where you can obviously mix and match all the people you're using to battle, I guess. It's really good.
It's good fun. Yeah.
Nice. I like the last point. I like the combat system on it as well, where you kind of got the zones where you can attack within and attack off.
Yeah,
it's a really good way of laying out a 3D map on a 2D surface.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're high above, you can shoot directly below you, for example, and all that sort of stuff. So you're contained within the zone, but it creates that kind of
nice little levels. Yeah. Only thing about that is color blindness friendly is not really there in terms of the on the maps, but that's a publisher thing to sort out. Yes. What is your number 5?
My number 5 is Paladins of the West Kingdom.
Ooh.
Which is probably going to appear slightly somewhere else on your list, I would imagine. But yeah, I think my 3, 4, and 5 are kind of all quite close to each other, to be fair, on the leveling. But yeah, Paladins of the West Kingdom. I mean, to be honest, probably going to leave this a little bit more for you to describe. Is probably the safe bet. But yeah, part of the West Kingdom series, and just a good game. So that's why it's on the list. But I'll save the rest of it for you, Luke.
Oh, it's coming up. It is coming up. Yeah. All right, that's number 5. Let's go to number 4.
My number 4. My number 4 also might be higher up your list, I would think, maybe, is Isle of Cats.
No, not on my list at all.
Oh, okay. So I actually do prefer Draw and Explore, if I'm being honest.
That's my opinion as well. I prefer the Explore and Draw version.
But actually, it's a good game, and I do love a little I'm struggling with my words.
Polyomino.
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 Say it confidently enough. Polyomino. So then, yeah, it's a great game. You're basically trying to squeeze cats onto a boat to help them escape from an island. You have different colour cats. If you put these tiles, which are different shapes essentially, and you're trying to configure them so they polyomino shaped. They're different colours. You group the same colours together. You score extra points. You also have like missions that you're trying to achieve as well. The big difference between the roll and write version, which is the draw and explore one, which we prefer, and this one is there's kind of like a drafting mechanic where you have cards and you pass them around and you're picking a card, and then those are the ones that you choose to play with, which I think adds an extra layer of strategy to the game, but also it makes it more complex than it needs to be fair.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like, hey, do you want to play this cute game with cats that you're trying to put onto a boat? I don't want them to be like, so you need to strategize about which cards you're selecting to ensure that you're having the most efficient turns and the stuff. So it just loses its fun a little bit on that.
Yeah, I agree, because I think what happens there is you're then having to manage 3 different economies as well. You're having to manage your cards, you're having to manage baskets, which are printed on the cards, but you're also having to manage fish, which is you use to buy the cards, but you also use
the currency basically.
Yeah, which you use to buy the cards, but you also use them to get the cats, and it's just overcomplicated for what actually with the Explore and Draw version is a really nice slimmed down version. To be perfectly honest, you could have done the Explore and Draw version just with the deck of cards. You didn't have to make it a roll right. You could have just flipped the cards and still just like, here's a stack of tiles. Find the cats that fit into that tile. That would be a very heavy box, I imagine, but still. Yes. I also do like that the inside of the box does have a target for a cat to sit in.
Yes.
Which is fun.
And many cat photos sitting in the box.
So many cat photos. So yeah. Cool. My number 4 is exactly the same game. It's Similo, which is a tiny little card game where you are basically. It's kind of similar to Mysterium in the sense of a player will have a 16 cards and they'll pick one out and they will pick one out and go, okay, this is the one that I'm trying to find. Shuffle it in with the other 11, not 16, and then deal them out into a row. And then you're going to play cards from your hand, say, this character is like, or my character is like this one that I'm playing out, or they are unlike this one, depending on certain aspects on them. You're just going to say, they are like and they are unlike. And it's just interesting to watch these thoughts fly around and do all sorts of conversations about what's being deduced on it. Similar to Mysterium and Obscuro and that sort of thing, where you're doing that sort of deduction. But what I like about it is that each of the Similo sets, as you'll have seen in the picture, there's a lot of different sets. There's not just one particular image. Is that you've got things like myths and legends, fairy tales, animals, wild animals, all sorts of different things, historical figures that you can just go, okay, well, let's just pick 2 decks. One of these is going to be the clue deck. This is going to be the answer deck. So I'm just going to deal out fairy tales.
Game, and we probably made it quite easy on ourselves when we played the game because we played the myths and legends and animals, I think. And I think the final answer was like Medusa, and I think the clue card was a snake, something along those lines. Yeah. So then by the time you boiled it down, it's like, oh, this is really obvious. But obviously you could make it much more challenging and I don't know, I can't think of a different example of a group. You could do a different set of cards.
Yeah. Historians would have been instead of myths.
Yeah, make it much harder to do that. So yeah, it's a really good game actually.
It's good fun, and like I say,
should go to my honourables actually.
It's one of those that you can just sort of stick in your pocket and take with you because you just need to have one box with 1 or 2 decks in there. Take it with you and off you go. I even have the Board Games of 2023 from Essen version, which is I haven't played with that yet. I feel like that's one that I just need to play with you purely because I think Laura will be just like, what? So that'll be an interesting one. So yeah, that's my number 4. That is Ross' number 4.
Yeah, nice.
Let's go to our number 3s. My number 3 is it's like a little city builder where you're just putting out resources and tiles and all sorts of things. And it's quite nice and fun little figures. It's Tiny Towns.
Okay, yes.
This is a nice little Peter McPherson AEG game where you are in a town. You're building this tiny town in a 5x5 or 4x4 grid. I can never remember. I think it's 5x5. And what you're going to be doing on your turn is whoever the active player is going to say, I'm going to pick one of these 5 resources, and everyone will take that resource and put it on their board. Then play passes around. The reason we're doing this is to build up these polyomino shapes using these different resources and these patterns that build to certain building cards. We've played this a few times on our partner platform of Sovereignty, same as other cats actually, and it's a really smooth implementation because you can just take the resources, put it down, and it'll tell you whether or not you can actually build a type of thing, and then you're just going to score different points. And what I love about it is that there's one thing stays the same for all of them, but each of the other card sets have got 4 different things that you can sort of shuffle in and just deal out randomly. So you've got a huge amount of replayability. It's got 3 expansions now at this point. There's a third one coming soon, I think April. Plus some promos and all sorts of things that you can just sort of shuffle in. You've got monuments that give you some like special one-off powers that you can go for. And it's just a really interesting spatial awareness puzzle that you can try and fit in. And if you play it solo, you can just sort of play around solo really quickly, and it's just chill. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a huge amount to throw on top of that. I think I played it once, I think so,
yes.
I think just once. So, yeah, I remember it being a good game. I don't remember it blowing my socks off necessarily either, but yeah,
no.
Every game has to
I just love the replayability and the variability you can have with all the different options and the expansions. So, yeah.
Yes.
That's it for me.
Right.
You're number 3.
I've got a sort of controversial number 3, sort of. It was on your honourable mentions.
Ooh.
So it's King's Dilemma.
Interesting.
Now, you did caveat the you didn't really enjoy it that much. And I didn't. And why didn't I enjoy it? I didn't enjoy it because I don't think we learnt the rules enough before we started playing. We kind of went in with let's just pick stuff and then roll with it. And then by the end of the game, I had a faction that was, I think, if I get the right way around, I think I had a faction that was giving me money, but then I had a secret objective card which was don't have any money, something along those lines. So it was really contradictory. So it meant that my playstyle was like all over the place. But as a game and as a system, I absolutely love it, and I absolutely love the idea of it. I need to play through more of it. So that's why it's got up to the height it has, basically. But yeah, so I mean, we'll go into a little bit more detail. Basically, you are a council who are advising a king, or basically making decisions around what's happening in the kingdom. Eventually, the king dies, but before that, what you're trying to do is position yourself to be the most influential, essentially. And you'll be presented with a problem. For example, I think we had lots of stuff around, do we go to war with the neighbouring faction? Because either we can trade with them and trade to gain the minerals, but that's going to cost us some money to do that. Or we can just invade them, which is going to piss them off, but we just get access to like the iron ore or whatever it was at the time, right? So we had decisions like that. You make a decision that impacts some of these values about how the kingdom is and what you...
reputation,
Yeah, I say what you value, but that doesn't really make sense. But yeah, some things about how much money the kingdom has, or how honourable the kingdom is, and all that sort of stuff. But you're trying to serve your own goal as well as each of these houses. It's very like Games of Thronesy, basically, but without all of the army and stuff. I dare say it's probably a better Game of Thrones board game than the Game of Thrones board game.
Yeah, so many dragons in King's Dilemma.
Yes.
So many dragons.
Yeah. How many dragons are there actually in Game of Thrones when you eventually get around to it?
I mean, 3.
aren't most of them dead by the time that Game of Thrones is? Or
Oh yeah, by the time you get to the end of it, there's only three babies.
I mean, if you play the Game of Thrones board game, I think 0 dragons in that in the actual board game. So anyway, King's Dilemma is a much more like, if you want to capture the that kind of Game of Thrones-esque vibe where you're all kind of conflicting, it's almost, I dare say as well, a better version of something like Werewolf almost than anything else. You're not trying to out an individual for being like the thing, but you are trying to suss out what everyone's agendas are and seeing who might ally with and support you a little bit. I think that's actually a better social deduction game than Werewolf or as I draw a blank, Resistance or any of those other games.
Yes, because I mean the objectives, and you does make a point about that, is that they are drafted at the beginning of the game. Yes. Which is kind of interesting.
Yes.
So you can have different factions having different goals as the game starts from the previous one, but I think you can't have the same one as you had the last round, which is kind of an interesting thing. And it is a campaign legacy style game, so you're going to be putting stickers out, and there's all sorts of different things that will happen as the game on. There's going to be all sorts of positives and negatives that will happen throughout the game. We've only played one scenario. We both put it on our campaign games to play through this year, so we're going to try and do some more of that. It's also really good to have as a. It's good to, if you can't have a consecutive number of players, because if you can't, it's got mechanisms to have people drop in and drop out.
Yeah, there's multiple I think there's like 9 factions or something you can choose from. So you can you can have up to 9 players, and they just come in and out basically.
I think it was 12. I think it was something stupid like 12.
Maybe it is more. Yeah, it's quite a lot anyway. Yeah.
That you can just have some fun with it. And then you were so hyped about it, you got it twice. That was it.
I did. Yeah. Well, I saw it really cheap, so I grabbed it, but I also asked for it for Christmas, I think it was, and then ended up with my copy and with a copy for Christmas. So
which then became my Christmas present.
Yes. So we then just got two copies to play with, which is awesome.
Which is quite good fun. Yeah, we can play it through, do different things, make better choices. Nice. That's our number 3s. Let's go to number 2.
My number 2. I don't know if you've just omitted it or it's about to be the same thing. My number 2 is Cartographers.
I omitted it because I knew it was going to come from your list. You like it a lot more than I do.
I loved this game. Absolutely loved this game. It has fallen off a little bit, mostly because it got not necessarily overplayed, but I played it quite a lot, and I've got a lot of games. And we've been through this already in the challenges video. Reference to that again. But I was trying to play through all of my games, and I think whereas not last year, but the year like 2022. When I played through, I just played loads of it because it was like, it's such a good game. Anyway, okay. Yeah. So again, flipping cards. It's a bit like Isle of Cats that we were talking about earlier, the roll and write version anyway. You flip cards, it has a pattern on it, it has type of terrain on it, you have a little map, and you just draw a really cute part of the terrain of that. So it might be like a T-shaped grass, T-shaped forest, for example. So you're just trying to fill up your map. Part of the cartographer's bit, but the trick is that you go through the seasons, and each season there are 2 score options for you to score. And typically it might be something like connect the forests on your map connect the mountains on your map with forests, or it might be your biggest group of all of your houses together, or it might be having water and farmland next to each other. And so you're just trying to score as many points as you can. And then it cycles through to the next season. And then you keep one of the scoring rounds from the last season, get a new one, and it loops back around again eventually. So you end up with like, I don't know, 8 opportunities or whatever. Forget that, right? Maybe
you score each season or each objective twice throughout the course of the game.
Yes. So 8. Oh, Did I do that right? Yeah, I did do that right. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Really, really good game. And obviously, you can get as arty as you like. So you can be really boring, and you can just I literally just draw like a child-style house on thing. Or you can get really, really intricate. If you get the opportunity and you're watching this right now, just pause us, go to Google, type in, I don't know, really fancy cartographer map. In fact, you might throw the word game in there.
Probably
have a look, because some people go overboard on it, and I'm jealous, but it's beautiful, like really, really nice.
There are people who have bought like stamps that you can do for like just stamping out the different like ink stamps to stamp out the different terrain, which is kind of satisfying to look at. I agree. Cartographers, if I hadn't excluded it deliberately because I knew it was going to be on the list, it probably would be my number 3. I think.
Fair.
I've cooled a bit on it because there's a lot of roll and write games. I think Cartographer is my first intro to a roll and write, or flip and write, I suppose it is. But I have all of the expansions for it. There are 7 of them. There's the heroes, and then there's 6 map packs. I think there are more map packs coming out in the future.
Add volcanoes, and you get like
different
islands
terrains.
And all
there's
stuff.
all sorts of weird terrains that I feel like that might be a challenge one year, is to play every map in Cartographers, just to see how they all go. But there's a lot of different stuff going on in each of those. You also didn't mention the monsters that will attack you at various points that will just pop up the ambush cards.
As well. Yeah, which is just really good because it could be quite a solitaire game otherwise, so you just end up just scribbling around your own map. But actually what sometimes happens is a monster will appear and attack you, a bit like goblins, for example, and you pass your map either left or right to the player, to whichever side it is, and then they then draw some monsters on your map, and if you don't surround the monsters with terrain, they'll score you negative points basically for each empty space adjacent. So there is a little bit of interaction, which otherwise could be a very solitaire game. So I think just enough. I think if you go any more than that, and then you get a bit annoyed, frustrated about the situation on the map, and I think any less than that, and then you just might as well be playing a solo game at that point, really.
Yeah, it's very easy to play it as a solo game. It is just a very chill experience.
Yes.
I love it. I think it's a great game. My number... actually, it's part of the roleplay universe as well, which is a whole thing. It's all part of that. Thunderworks games have a great connected universe. It's all real good.
Yeah.
My number 2 is probably... It's controversial from your aspect, because I don't think you don't particularly like this one. It's Wingspan.
Yeah.
You're kind of over it. Wingspan is a game where you are gathering birds. You are bird watchers. If you're watching this video, you know what Wingspan is. It's a game where you're collecting birds. You've got 4 different actions you can do on your turn: lay eggs, gain food, draw bird cards, or play a bird into your habitat. Excuse me. And you're just going to go around. You're just going to be playing these cards, doing different things. Birds will have different powers, so that when you activate an action, it will get stronger the more birds you have in that row. And then you can activate all of the various powers that are in there. There's a whole bunch of expansions at the moment. There's at least 3. And I think they're planning to do 4 more, maybe 3 more for each continent. Because the base game is the Americas, then you've got European expansion, the Oceania expansion, and then the Asia expansion, which came out with a 2-player version, plus a 7, up to 6 and 7 players if you wanted to play it.
Crazy.
But the way it works is that it does it simultaneously, so like 2 players will play at the same time. So it's not quite so bad. As I'd be like, oh Jesus, a 7-player turn for all this. But I think it's a really good game. I think there's a lot of replayability to be in there. You don't have to necessarily play with all the birds of a particular set. Like, you could just take a chunk out. Like, Laura and I played it recently where we just played with the Oceania and the Asia birds. We just went, let's just play with those birds and see what happens. Because, geographically that makes sense. They're all in that section of the world. Which was just good fun to play. I know that there's a lot of problems that people have around like the egg strategy at the end, where it's just like, there's no point playing stuff out and wasting turns doing this. Let's just spam eggs and just get a load of eggs going for this particular game. There's a couple of cards which are a little bit broken. The Ravens in particular are pretty strong, but there is a new game in that world, sort of Wormspan, which is coming out, which I watched a couple of videos about earlier, which they started releasing content about that. I'm interested. It's about dragons instead, and it solves a lot of the problems that people have with Wingspan, which is, I think,
I've got my fingers crossed.
So I think you and I would probably be like,
So, Wingspan. I don't think I can specifically say to you, this is why I don't like Wingspan. I think it's one of those games where everything that they do, for me personally, just hits like, I don't know, this is probably going to make it sound like I'm being really dramatic, but it's something like 90%. So it's like everything just falls slightly short of what I'm expecting or what I'm wanting from the game. Now, if it's one thing, I'd be like, I'll just let it slide, whatever, I don't really mind. But because for me it feels like it's across the board. Like, it's not a terrible game, but it just feels like, it's like Uncanny Valley kind of vibes. Does that make sense?
No.
Where I'm like, it's where I'm like, it is a good game, but like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't quite look right.
There's something that doesn't quite sit properly.
Yeah. And just so, it's like I say, I'm kind of lost for words on it. just a bit like. I just don't care about it. It's just like not even on my radar kind of thing. I think is the thing. But I know loads of people love it. So
yeah, I mean it's a top. I think it's in the top 25. I think it might be 25 at the moment on BGG. So a lot of people love it. I mean, it is stunning. The artwork is really beautiful. Like every time I draw a new bird, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty bird, and pop it out, and it's quite it's satisfying to go through. And there's a lot of expansions that come with it, and a lot of variation. I think. I understand a lot of the complaints that people have about it, like the egg engine at the end of the game is okay. You could do something about that. Card draw is a particular issue. I think that's the problem I have with Arc Nova. I don't have it with Terraforming Mars. Weirdly, that's not so much of a problem. I don't know why that's not a problem.
I think Terraforming Mars has the cards are quite similar. I think in the end, so. You might get one which is like, I don't know, be like increase your money income by 1, and then you get another card that increases it by 2, or it might be you get one but you have to lose like energy or something like that. Because there's enough similarity but variation. When you're drawing cards, it doesn't hurt you as much because you're like, well, it's not the perfect strategy, but I still get to do the thing I want to do. But with Wingspan, it's like you draw X. You maybe have like 3 cards available to you, or you can blind draw. And it's like playing. Really, maybe a poor or good example would be like playing Ticket to Ride, but you only have 3 train cards available instead of the 5, and instead of having like 5 colors, you have like 15 colors. And then you start thinking about like. When you've got no options for what you want to draw from there, and if you go blind, you've got almost no opportunity to draw the card that you want. You can't really formulate a strategy properly.
And I think that's kind of the thing. There's enough.
Now I'm going to start diving into one of the things, so I'm going to pause there.
I think it's a valid criticism that there's an element of chance that is not able to be mitigated. The food and the bird cards is a significant thing, which can impact a lot of people's enjoyments. I know people that love Wingspan that have said that they nearly were put off it because of their early plays. They had those problems. I get that. A lot of what I'm hearing about Wormspan, they fix at least a couple of those aspects of it, which I'm really excited to see. So that might be turning up at some point in the house relatively soon. So that's our number 2. So let's have a look at our number 1 games of 2019. So my number 1 is Paladins of the West Kingdom.
Didn't see that coming.
It's my number 1 game of all time, so it was always going to be the top of this particular list. Paladins, it's in the same world as the West Kingdom, as Ross said, by Gutful Games, where you are just continuing on with your life as a villager, but you are now, having built the city as part of architecture, you are now continuing on and defending it from the incoming barbarians that will be attacking you from wherever they're attacking you from. I think canonically it's attacking from like the Norse and from all sorts of different invaders all across it. So there's all sorts of things happening there. But basically, on your turn, you'll start off by going, okay, well, I've got 3 paladins to choose from, which are going to give you little attribute bonuses, which will impact the actions that you can take on your turn. You're going to play 1 paladin, put 1 on the top of your deck, put 1 to the bottom of the deck, never to be seen again. Properly. And then you have a collection of workers that you'll get, that you'll draft from a tavern, just people that are available, plus some that will come from your paladin, and a special passive power that will be boosting you for that round. And over 7 rounds, you're going to be going around placing out buildings to do various different actions. But the clever thing about it is that the different actions you have are tied to your attributes. They will be boosted by having a particular attribute increased, and that will increase the strength of it, but they will reward you with a different attribute. So you have to work your engine so that you can do those actions in a particular way that you can go, okay, I'm going to do these 2 actions, or these 3 actions, that will all boost each other and go up. And you kind of need to go hard on maybe 2 of the tracks, never all 3, definitely not 4 if you're playing with the expansion. Because otherwise you will just go, I score like 5 points for these at the end of the game. Someone's like, cool, I scored 20 because I just did this with 2 of them. And it's like, well, damn it. But there's a lot to do. I would say it does suffer from an issue of variety because there's like 10 paladins, I think. So playing it back to back repeatedly doesn't necessarily give you it, but there's enough mix up with the townsfolk that you can recruit, the different cards that you can draw in, the different strategies that play out, the options that come out when you draw your paladins in a particular way. So your strategies will change from game to game depending on what's out there, which I think is fine. Like It's a pretty big, hefty game. I think it was one of their heaviest games until they started doing the South Tigris series, which is a lot heavier, quite frankly. But yeah, I just love Paladins. I think it's a really, really good game.
Yeah, so I think it snuck onto the bottom of my list, but not necessarily because, like I say, the third, fourth, and fifth place were kind of all a little bit interchangeable based on what attribute I wanted to care about at any one particular time. Yeah, really good game. Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I hadn't really considered around the replayability. It's the kind of game where you'll be like, oh yeah, I'd love to play this, but maybe like
once every 3 months. Yeah, 2-3 months or something.
Sort of thing. Not multiple times within a month. Definitely not multiple times within a week. Right? You wouldn't go from like board games on Monday, let's do this, then board games on Friday, let's do that again. You get bored of it so quickly. So that'd be a really good game.
It's solid, and I think it's good with part of the West Kingdom games, because I don't think the last one in this series is going to come up again. Is the Tome Saga that connects all three of them together. Yes. I really want to sit down one weekend or one day and just go, right, we're going to play Architects, Paladins, and Viscount with the Tome Saga, and just go all the way through all three of them in a day. I think that would be a really good experience.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that.
Maybe we'll. Do you want to hear about my number one?
I've heard about your number one so much. I'm just gonna.
You audience, do you want to hear about my number one? Okay, my number one. It's Tapestry. I mean, it probably was obvious because I'm getting overly excited about it. Right, Tapestry, the world's most underrated game ever, I reckon, anyway. So, yeah, I don't know why... Okay, I'm going to put out this very quick stall there. I don't know why this isn't higher rated on BGG. I don't know why it really clicks with it. I think it's because the first time you play it, you're like, the heck is going on here? And you have no clue, and then you get like 50 points at the end of it, and you're like, well, that was a rubbish game. But if you just... Again, I feel like this is the thing you say about really good series that people like, where they're like, you've got to just get through the first 3 episodes, and it'll be great afterwards. But Tapestry, get through your first like 2-3 games, understand the system behind it, and yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. Maybe the other thing that's holding it back is also its strength, which is there's a huge variety of civilizations you can play as, but also means that for a long time they've been a bit unbalanced. So some of them are much stronger than others. There's definitely been times when we've played a game and I've gone, well, I know if I pick this civ, I'm probably going to win here. Yeah. And I can just pick it based off that. Rather than being like, oh, this is a new or interesting one to play. Right, Tapestry. You've got... It's a civilization game. It's a 4X game, essentially. So you've got 4 tracks that you're moving on up. You're either going up science, which is basically kind of supports the other 3 tracks. You've got technology, which is you're researching technology and you're progressing, and that gives you some benefits. You've got exploration, which you put tiles down onto the central like board map that you're building out, and eventually you can go into space. And then you've got military, which essentially lets you conquer those empty spaces that you've been placing a minute ago, or that you conquering other people's spaces. And you have income buildings which match all of those tracks, and you're taking them off and you're putting them onto your capital city, which gives you points and gesturing too much because my autofocus is going, which you can put on the capital city, which gives you victory points and some other resources and bonuses, and based on which buildings you remove basically means which victory points you're going to get. So you probably want to, like just talking about a second ago about focusing on a few tracks rather than lots of tracks. You really want to be like, right, I'm going tech, I'm going to grab all of the tech cards, and then I'm going to remove all of the yellow income buildings, and that means that I'm going to be scoring 3 victory points for every tech card that I have. Awesome. The replayability in it really is, as I said, is around those civilization that changes. There's loads of civilizations, there's lots of expansions which are available, and they are literally just about to start delivering on, or have already in some regions been delivering on the civilizations. They've done the base game upgrades basically, so they've improved and revised
the base game and the first 2
expansions.
And
a few others, that's true.
The first 2 expansions they've done, which I think ours is arriving tomorrow based on the email I got earlier.
Awesome. And then you also have Capital City, which are very different. And so the Capital City has like some impossible terrain where you can't put stuff down, or it might be that it interacts differently with the game. Like instead of getting like resources back for completing areas, you get a tech card, as I've already mentioned, or you get a building, or you get to roll a die and gamble on stuff. Or the other thing I was mentioning as well is when the expansion adds like an arts track, so you've got an option for a 5th track. That's a very quick summary of the game, but it's just a brilliant game. I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's the most played game last year. I will never get bored of it. It's the one which I've absolutely pimped out. It's got all the expansions, got the insert, got the play mat, everything. Yeah, like I say, I think it's really, really underrated. And the main reason why I say it's underrated is because I introduce a lot of people who don't play board games to board games, or play with games with people who don't know board games. And I quite frequently crack out Tapestry as a, hey, do you want to try something a little bit heavier, potentially?
And then destroy them.
I like it. No, yeah, well, I do sometimes. But I'll fall into the trap where I will lose because I'm too busy being like...
You could do this, or you could do this.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I always try to curb it a little bit because I'm always like, this is a good strategy at the beginning. And I try to give the good briefing around, like, get income buildings, don't worry about victory points at the beginning because it'll pay off more. Without being like, hey, on this turn, you should definitely do this action because this will give you the most points. Like, I will always avoid that. But I fall into that trap of being like, oh, yeah, like, excited about other... I'm excited about other people playing the game.
Yes.
That's how much I like the game. And so then I get carried away with the excitement and I don't focus on my own strategy, and I do typically lose what I'm introducing. But nearly everyone who I introduce, people who are very anti-board game, I dare say, do like the game. I'm specifically thinking Connor and Matt, who occasionally appear on, I say occasionally for Matt, very frequently for Connor, appear on our D&D series. Don't really care that much for games, or they've got a very small group of games that they enjoy. I forced them to play, I think at like 1 a.m, Tapestry.
Yep.
And actually, they said they liked it. They could have been lying to me. I don't think they were. I think they genuinely...
Unlikely. They would have gone away.
Well, we played Eclipse, right? And then everyone was like, this is awful. No one's enjoying this, I think was the problem with that one. And people were quite vocal about that. So... I'm quite confident, and I've done it with my sister, who I've got her to play this, and she really enjoyed it. She doesn't normally play games, so I do seem to play Tapestry at like 1 a.m. quite frequently. I can think of 3 occasions now where I've played this game really late, and I don't know why I've done that to myself. Anyway, I'll stop talking about it because I've literally been talking for like 6 or 7 minutes now. Amazing game, I love it. Woo!
Yeah, it's a real good game. I think it's got some balance issues, and I think at 2 players there is a very clear strategy to take.
Yes.
And if you are the first player, you're more likely to win if you're playing that at 2. So it's kind of you just got to see where it goes. But yeah, so those are our top games of 2019. I'm wrapping up and not talking about Tapestry because we've got to go. So that's what it is. Let us know what you think about the games that were released in 2019 down in the comments below. Let us know if you like any of the games on our list, if there's anything we've missed that we should really check out at some point. And do all the things you do. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the things that you do on YouTube.
Awesome.
And until next time, thanks everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.